On the day of our engagement, my fiancé, Jace, was late. When Jace finally arrived, I was holding the microphone about to announce to the guests, the engagement is canceled. He thought there must be a reason for my behavior and blamed me for being unreasonable. Penelope skipped class and got called by the school. It's not like I did it on purpose. Olivia, are you going to make a scene and embarrass both our families just because of such a small matter? I smiled and replied, you're right, I am a spoiled little miss, and I can't tolerate even the slightest grievance. On such an important occasion, Jace had to embarrass me. Penelope took the opportunity to mock me. Tisich, you're just a brainless vase. You're not worthy of my Uncle Jace at all. I didn't bother to argue with her and put down the microphone, turning to leave. Jace didn't chase after me, but calmly told everyone, I apologize to everyone. Olivia is being a bit willful, but the marriage between the Olivia and Jace families is inevitable. We will see you all at the wedding. But a month later, when I appeared with my new husband, Jace was caught off guard and lost his composure.
1.
I disappeared for 3 days and Jace, as always, went to work as usual. He casually sent me a message on social media. Come back when you're done causing trouble. As the heir to the Olivia family and my fiancé, you've already embarrassed the group enough. An exclamation mark appeared, indicating that the message failed to send. Jace suppressed his anger and found my number in his contacts. He had always been impatient with me. When the call went unanswered, Jace angrily threw his phone on the table. Clearly annoyed, he still called his secretary. Lisa, prepare a gift for Olivia. After the meeting with President Ivan, have the driver take it directly to Olivia's house. With that settled, Jace suppressed his emotions and continued to deal with his documents, not paying too much attention to the present situation. He didn't expect to be turned away, and he was just going through the motions. When he heard from the housekeeper that I wasn't home and wouldn't even come to the door, he turned the car around with a sullen face. All of this was within my expectations. The Olivia and Jace families had been family friends for generations, and Jace and I had been engaged since before we were born. Both sets of parents were very satisfied with each other, and they didn't care about our own feelings. I couldn't stand Jace's cold and aloof demeanor, and he didn't like my spoiled and willful personality. For years, I've wanted nothing more than to cut ties with Jace, but my parents kept pushing us together. From kindergarten to university, Jace and I were in the same class. It wasn't until we went to university, he chose philosophy and I chose finance, that we were finally separated by 2 buildings. For the first time, we reached a consensus. Out of sight, out of mind. Even so, after graduation, I couldn't escape the fate of marriage. The Jace family wanted Jace to take over the company, and the Olivia family needed financing to go public, so they quickly put the marriage between Jace and me on the agenda. Originally, Jace and I couldn't stand each other, but for the sake of our families, we could have just gotten married and cooperated. But what happened at the engagement party made me unable to tolerate him any longer. Penelope was the trigger. 3 years ago, Quinn, the adopted daughter of the Jace family, and her husband died in a car accident. Their daughter, Penelope, was adopted by the Jace family. The girl was shy and didn't like to get close to others, but she was overly dependent on Jace, her uncle who wasn't related by blood. Because of this, the conflict between Jace and me deepened.
2.
At the charity gala, Jace and I were there to raise funds. He was in charge of the project introduction, and I was responsible for socializing. Everything was going smoothly, but at the last minute, Jace suddenly left the VIP with the investor and left me in an awkward situation. Without any materials, I could only drink and apologize to everyone, but the other party still put Olivia and Jace's companies on the blacklist. After suffering a significant loss, I went to Jace's house to confront him, only to find him sending Penelope home in his car, with his suit jacket draped over her. It turned out that Penelope's phone was turned off, and she had posted on social media by the seaside with a meaningful caption, "If I jump into the sea, will I be able to see my mom?" I watched as Jace protected Penelope, her hair not even wet, yet he was so worried that he was losing his composure. This was the first time I had seen Jace, who was always so composed in business, lose his cool. Penelope was 12 years old that year, and she would hide behind Jace whenever she saw me. But I could see the challenge in her eyes. Just like our first meeting, no matter what I did, Penelope would never appreciate it. As she grew older, she took advantage of Jace's protection and developed a bad attitude, no longer bothering to hide her dislike for me. I had warned Jace that Penelope was up to no good, but he wouldn't listen, and instead blamed me. No one in this world knew Jace better than I did. He was a shrewd businessman who didn't have much human warmth. Since I was young, the Olivia family had carefully cultivated me, and everything I did was centered around Jace. To cultivate my temperament, I had to take 2 hours of flower arranging classes every day and learn piano, polo, golf, and other skills. On weekends, I had to learn baking and cooking and personally make desserts for Jace. Although he never ate what I made, I still had to create the image of a beautiful and capable fiancé. People in the circle joked that I was a good wife, and that when Penelope appeared, Jace messed up his business deals repeatedly, and it was always me who had to clean up the mess. I could accept a loveless marriage for the sake of benefits, but when Jace became unreliable, he was no longer even a suitable partner for me. 3. A week passed, with hundreds of missed calls, some angry and some leisurely. On a vacation island, there were many beautiful people playing and taking pictures on the beach. My friend Ruby walked towards me with a fruity cocktail. "Olivia, you've caused quite a stir this time," Ruby said. Wearing sunglasses, I was lying on a sun lounger, enjoying the sunshine. I replied casually, "I didn't cancel the engagement out of anger. I just don't want to marry Jace." After leaving the engagement party that day, I immediately contacted Ruby and booked a flight to this romantic island to escape. Ruby sighed, a little regretful. "You and Jace seem like a perfect match. It's a pity. He's good-looking and has a good figure, but his personality is not very good." I took off my sunglasses and took a big gulp of the sweet and spicy cocktail. Just like Jace, it looked okay, but the taste was mediocre. Pity my ass. Character is a deal breaker. Even if it's not for myself, I have to cut my losses for the sake of the company. There are plenty of handsome men in the world, and I, Olivia, won't have trouble finding one better than Jace. Ruby laughed and clinked glasses with me. "You're right. I'll find you a handsome guy tonight and put him in your room, guaranteed to be better than Jace in every way." I laughed and teased her. "Forget it. With Holden protecting you, if you can still find a handsome guy, I'll pay for all your travel expenses." Ruby smiled but didn't say anything. But half an hour later, when I returned to my hotel room and turned on the light, I was met with a pair of deep, soulful eyes staring at me. Unlike my shock, the handsome man was very calm, and he showed a flawless and handsome smile, his voice innocent. "Miss Olivia, are you satisfied with me?" Not only was he handsome and had a great figure, but his voice was also pleasant to hear, and he looked younger than Jace. Before I could react, the man's eyes were full of affection, and he leaned closer and closer. His warm breath was close to my face, and at that moment, my head went blank, and I hated myself for being so impulsive. The atmosphere in the room was ambiguous, and at the last moment, I pushed him away, still retaining a trace of reason. "What's your name?"
Are you
"Healthy?" The other party's eyes were deep and unclear. "My name is Graham, and I'm Holden's cousin." I was surprised. I had never heard Ruby mention that Holden had such a young cousin. Seeing that Graham was silent, I felt my cheeks burn. I had just asked him such a straightforward question. I averted my gaze to hide my embarrassment. "Ahem. Sorry, mister." "Graham," I misunderstood. Graham suppressed a smile and said in a low, seductive voice, "Olivia, don't you remember me?" I frowned and looked at his handsome face, but I had no impression of him. Graham shook his head helplessly and unbuttoned his shirt. I instinctively dodged, but he calmly explained, "Miss Olivia, don't worry. I just want you to see the birthmark on my shoulder." My eyes deepened, and I fixed my gaze on the diamond-shaped red mark on Graham's left shoulder. A memory flashed back. When I was in high school, I had helped a junior middle school student who was being bullied by his classmates. At that time, he was being beaten up by his classmates and robbed of his money, and I asked my driver to stop and help him. Before leaving, I accidentally saw the boy's school uniform torn, and there was a conspicuous birthmark on his body. I never thought that the boy was Graham.
4.
Seeing me standing there dumbfounded, Graham said, "Miss Olivia, don't you remember? When I was in junior high." Before he could finish, I quickly interrupted, "I remember you. You've grown up so much. You're quite the handsome young man now." Graham looked a little helpless. "Olivia, I'm only 2 years younger than you. I'm not really a kid." I was so embarrassed, I could only make a lame excuse. "Well, according to our generation, I'm the same age as Holden and Ruby, so you're kind of like my younger brother." Graham's eyes darkened, and there was a hint of deep meaning in them. "So, sister, you asked me 2 questions, and now I'll answer your second one. I'm in very good health, I have no bad habits, and I don't have any diseases. If you don't believe me, I can send you my latest medical report." I blushed unexpectedly and almost choked on my own saliva. This younger brother was much more aggressive than I had imagined. I had just been joking, and besides, Graham was Holden's cousin. No matter how crazy I was, I couldn't possibly make a move on my cousin-in-law. Ruby had really set me up. I forced a smile. "Well, Graham, Ruby is just messing around. Don't take it to heart. What happened today was just a joke." Graham chuckled, but his eyes were still alluring. I have to admit, the Holden family had good genes. Holden had beautiful peach blossom eyes, and Graham was no exception. His smile was charming and captivating. The sudden ring of my phone broke the silence. I was relieved and answered the phone. When I heard Jace's voice, my expression darkened. "Olivia, do you know that you're an adult now, and you're too old to be playing missing? The media has been saying that the marriage between the Olivia and Jace families is in trouble. No matter where you are, you must attend the charity gala hosted by the SJ Group president at Hotel 1 tonight. Don't test my patience, or else you'll suffer the consequences." As soon as Jace finished speaking, a female voice came from the other end of the line. "Uncle Jace, I'm going to attend the banquet tonight too. Which dress do you think I should wear?" "Uncle Jace, this blue diamond suit looks good on you. It just so happens that the dress I want to wear also has blue gems." Before Penelope could finish speaking, I hung up the phone. She had put on a one-woman show for nothing. Little girls' tricks were nothing new to me. I didn't care about Jace, and I wouldn't be jealous or resentful. I had seen this kind of drama countless times growing up. Just like my parents, my mom knew my dad was having an affair, but she chose to turn a blind eye. For so many years, my parents always appeared to be a loving couple in public, but no one knew how much public relations it took to maintain that image. In wealthy families, marriages were often based on interests rather than true love. In the past, I had done everything to please Jace to maintain the marriage, but now I was done pretending. After a while, the phone rang again, and it was the same number.
5.
Before I could hang up, Graham answered. Penelope on the other end of the line said arrogantly, "Olivia, I said those things on purpose just for you. You've been gone for a few days, and Uncle Jace hasn't mentioned you at all." I reached out to grab the phone, but Graham, taking advantage of his height, avoided me and retorted, "That's great. Miss Green Tea, please make sure to keep a close eye on Jace, and don't let him disturb me and my sister." Penelope was speechless for a moment, but she didn't react. I was furious and pinched Graham's waist hard, finally regaining control of the phone. "Graham, what are you doing? Do you know how much trouble you've caused me with those words?" Graham winced in pain and bent down, pleading in a low voice, "Sister, I'm sorry. Don't be angry. I just couldn't stand seeing someone so petty." I told him coldly, "Your behavior is no different from hers, equally childish and ridiculous." Graham's clear eyes filled with moisture, and his tone was aggrieved. I was presumptuous.
"I'm sorry."
I dismissed him. "Get out of my room. I don't have time to play house with you." Graham was taken aback by my coldness. "Olivia, don't be angry. It was my fault. I didn't want to listen to his useless apologies and said directly, "Just go. No matter what happened between us before, I only think you're very impolite for interfering in my private affairs without permission." Graham froze, his eyes filled with dejection, and he bowed deeply to me. Sorry. Then he turned and left. I suddenly called out to him, "Leave the room, Key." Graham's eyes were dull, and he couldn't hide his bitterness. He turned around, put the room key on the table, and whispered, "Sorry." The door opened and closed, and a cold wind blew into the room, making me feel a little chilly. An unknown number called, and I answered it and turned on the speakerphone. As expected, it was Jace, furious and demanding an explanation. "Olivia, I will never marry a woman who is unfaithful before marriage. You better come back home immediately. If I catch you doing anything shameful, both the Olivia and Jace families will suffer the consequences of public opinion." Jace gritted his teeth, but I remained calm and cool, and I sneered back, "Jace, can't you understand human language?" There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by disbelief. "What do you mean? Olivia, it's you who's being unfaithful. How dare you talk to me like that?" A curve formed at the corner of my eye, and I told Jace directly, "I've already told you. The engagement is canceled. Jace, we're no longer related, and you have no right to tell me what to do. Don't call me again." Without hesitation, I hung up the phone. The situation was as I expected. For all these years, Jace had used our marriage to control me, taking my dedication and patience for granted. But now I was no longer willing to play along. Jace had lost much more money because of Penelope than he would lose now. Of course, publicly breaking off the engagement would also affect the Olivia family's business, but it wouldn't bankrupt us. It would only cause some fluctuations in our profits. My parents were both business people, and they could handle a little risk. 6. I had a good night's sleep. In the morning, someone rang the doorbell. I sleepily opened the door and saw Graham standing there with a tray, smiling at me. "Good morning, Miss Olivia. Ruby said you like meat floss cake. I'm a good cook. Would you like to try it?" I looked up at him, my expression emotionless. "Didn't you understand what I said last night?" A look of disappointment flashed in Graham's eyes. "You have to give me a chance to make amends. If you just sentence me to death, I think I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I scoffed coldly and told him indifferently, "Moral blackmail? That doesn't work on me." Graham was persistent. "Miss Olivia, don't think too much. I'll just leave the cake and go." I closed the door decisively, not giving him a chance. Shortly after, my phone rang. It was Ruby. "Olivia, your parents have called me. What should I do?" "Don't worry about it, I'll handle it." My eyes dimmed slightly, and I felt a headache coming on. I opened the document that Ruby had sent me. It was a picture of Jace and Penelope attending the SJ Group charity gala together last night. Penelope, who had grown up, looked exquisite and charming, standing next to Jace in matching outfits. They were laughing and talking intimately. I remembered the day of Penelope's 18th birthday when Jace had gotten into a fight for her. As the heir of the Jace family, Jace was well-educated and could handle any embarrassing situation with ease. That night, when President Ford invited Penelope to dance, Jace not only refused on her behalf, but also lost a $1 million contract. He couldn't bear to see Penelope wronged, but the consequences of his actions were borne by me. Later, I personally organized a meeting to apologize to President Ford and even got a stomach ulcer from drinking too much, but during that time, Jace was busy shopping with Penelope. But thanks to his incompetence, I got the opportunity to participate in company decision-making. As my thoughts drifted, I couldn't help but smile. I got dressed and went out, only to find Graham waiting in the corridor. He hadn't left. "Miss Olivia, can we talk?" I stopped and thought for a moment. "In the coffee shop downstairs." 7. After taking a seat, Graham was rather reserved. I said bluntly, "If you want to apologize, you don't have to." He looked embarrassed and quickly explained, "That's not what I meant." I calmly opened my phone and clicked on the page introducing the overseas branch of Graham's family company. "Is this your family's business?" Graham nodded. "My cousin's family is in charge of domestic business, and my sister Scarlett is in charge of overseas business." I got straight to the point. "I want to talk business with your sister. If you can introduce me, we can call it even." Graham seemed a little hesitant, which I expected. I had already had someone investigate. Graham's family company was originally rooted in the domestic market, and its overseas development relied on initial investments and dividends. But since Scarlett took over the company, she had rallied the major shareholders to propose new strategies within 2 years, significantly increasing profits and consolidating her power. In other words, the company now belonged entirely to Graham's family. Scarlett was a decisive and capable businesswoman, but Graham was the opposite of his sister. He didn't like business and went abroad to study sculpture after graduating from middle school. Graham had probably returned home to avoid Scarlett. I had already made up my mind. As long as I could develop overseas business, even without the cooperation of Jace's family company, the Olivia family company could still go public. That way, my parents and those shareholders would have no reason to urge me to continue with the engagement. I said to him, "You just need to give me your sister's personal email address, and I'll contact her myself." Graham immediately agreed. Okay. As we were talking, my phone rang. It was Penelope. "Olivia, how dare you? Jace has been so worried about you, and you're just running away? You're such a heartless person. I just found it ridiculous. If he's sick, he should go to the hospital. I'm not a doctor. Why would he call me?" Penelope was so unreasonable. "I can't drive, so you come and pick up Uncle Jace." I replied coldly, "Then let him die." Before I could hang up, Jace, unable to bear it anymore, said, "Olivia, do you really want to turn against me?" I didn't want to pay attention to his neurotic behavior, but unexpectedly, when I turned on the video call, I saw my parents there as well. My mother scolded me with a cold face. "Olivia, don't think that just because you're with Ruby, I can't find you. It's fine to play for a few days, but this involves the company, and you can't be so willful." My father also joined in. The marriage cannot be changed. Jace was late that day because he couldn't help it. Don't be so unreasonable and make everyone laugh at our family. The Jace family, on the other hand, were hypocrites. On the surface, they asked Jace to apologize to me, but their words were full of probing, as if they were afraid that I would betray the Jace family heir before the marriage. I had no intention of being polite. "Jace, you're so pathetic. Are you really trying to play the victim? I've already told you, the engagement is canceled. Jace, we're no longer related, and you have no right to tell me what to do. Don't call me again." Before my parents could refute, I blocked their words. I have all the company's client information in my hands. Those investors and partners only recognize me. If you don't want to see your profits decline, you better not interfere with me. Jace was furious. "Olivia, do you know what you're saying? The Olivia and Jace families rise and fall together. What are you doing? Just because I was late for our engagement?" I told him indifferently, "I simply don't like Penelope. If you can drive her out of the Jace family, I might consider getting back together with you." Hearing this, Graham's mood seemed to be low. "Sister." I noticed his intentions. Graham was doing this on purpose, trying to drive a wedge between me and Jace. Unfortunately, such a selfish act only made me feel disgusted. 8. The person on the other end of the phone clearly heard Graham's voice. Jace asked me in a deep voice, "Olivia, we just got engaged, and you're so eager to lose face. You can't even hide your lover?" I was not to be outdone. An engagement without even exchanging rings doesn't count. "Jace, don't think I don't know. You bought the same wedding ring for me and Penelope." Seeing that ring on my hand, I just feel disgusted. Jace, however, didn't care. "Our wedding rings are custom-made. But Penelope likes it too. As her elder, why do you always have to be so petty?" Before I could speak, Graham retorted again. "In that case, why doesn't Mr. Jace marry Miss Penelope? Maybe she likes you too." His words angered Jace, who denied it vehemently. "What nonsense are you talking about? Penelope and I are family." Penelope took the opportunity to add fuel to the fire. "Uncle Jace, don't be angry. I told you earlier that Olivia was hooking up with strange men outside, and you didn't believe me. Now it's confirmed. How can a woman with such a shameless and corrupt character enter our Jace family?" I didn't explain much, just said, Mom and Dad don't have anything to do with the Jace family in the future. My engagement with Jace is hereby canceled. After saying that, I hung up the phone, but saw a hint of triumph in Graham's eyes looking at me. Aren't you going to explain, sister? I guess that this person had been bullied as a child, and his psychology might be a bit pathological and paranoid. His behavior was like repaying kindness with resentment, which made me uncomfortable. More than half a month passed. Jace didn't look for me anymore, and my cooperation with Scarlett had been finalized. Graham persisted in chasing after me, and I remained unmoved throughout the process. Until one night, Graham appeared in my room again and chose to have a showdown with me. Olivia, I already know about the business you've been discussing with my sister recently. I raised an eyebrow at him. So? Graham said, if you want to cooperate with the Graham family, there's no need to go to such great lengths. Compared to Jace, I'm more suitable to be your marriage partner. You and my sister both like doing business, and I can support you wholeheartedly. I didn't hesitate at all. Let's get married. Graham was shocked and stunned on the spot, not expecting me to be so direct. I said calmly, go back to my country to get the marriage certificate tomorrow, or it will be too late. Your household registration book has already been sent to me by Scarlett.
9.
Graham had never thought he could get this far so easily. At this moment, he should have been overjoyed, but instead felt hesitant. He couldn't help but ask me, are you serious? I replied calmly, of course. Graham looked disappointed. You're treating marriage like a transaction. You don't even like me. I didn't hide the truth. As you said yourself, you're more suitable for marriage with me than Jace. You just think the fairy tales of princes falling in love with Cinderella are romantic. But don't forget, Cinderella was originally the least favored daughter in the Earl's family. Just like Scarlett, do you think she will suddenly fall in love with a poor boy one day and give up the company she worked so hard to build? The reason you can ignore reality and fantasize about happiness is because you have everything you need and someone to protect you. If you say you like me, that's fine. I agree to marry you, but our married life will be no different from now. Graham hesitated, unable to find words to argue. I told him, the choice is yours. I have a flight at 9 tomorrow morning. If you're willing to get the certificate, you can go back to my country with me. If not, your sister will send someone to pick you up. Remember to close the door when you go out. Good night. After saying that, I went to bed on my own. Graham turned and left, leaving only a lonely figure behind. A month later, I appeared at the listing ceremony of Olivia's company, and Jace rushed over when he heard the news. In the backstage dressing room, Jace cleared the room, but inexplicably came to ask me, Olivia, how come I didn't know anything about the listing of Olivia's company? How come you didn't leak any news about your cooperation with the Scarlet Group? I pursed my lips, looking at him with a wry smile. Jace, I'm no longer your fiancé. What are you doing here shouting and yelling? Jace was persistent, grabbed my arm in anger, and said, Olivia, I told you, the engagement hasn't been canceled. What kind of tricks did you play to abandon Jace's company and climb a higher branch? Don't forget, Olivia, the Jace family and your family name, family are old friends. How can you betray us? I said sternly, Jace, you used to spoil Penelope and mess up so many businesses. How dare you blame me? Businessmen put profits first. My marriage with the Jace family was just a verbal agreement, not a contract that binds us. And besides, we've already parted ways. While I was confronting him, Penelope pushed the door open and said, Do you have a conscience? Uncle Jace cares about you so much. How can you treat him like this? I broke free from Jace's restraint, rubbed my wrist, and slapped Penelope. Penelope, I didn't bother to argue with you before because of the relationship between the Olivia and Jace families, but that doesn't mean you can be so arrogant and ill-mannered in front of me. Jace turned around to protect Penelope and accused me without a word. Olivia, you're an elder. How can you hurt Penelope? I gave him another slap. Jace, are you sober? Penelope is raised in your Jace family. What kind of relative is she to me? If you piss me off, I'll deal with you too. Ruby arrived just in time to witness the good show. Olivia, it's almost time. Graham asked me to call you. Jace suddenly realized. Who is Graham? Penelope thought she had caught my handle and gloated. Olivia, you actually raised a lover behind Jace's back and even brought him here openly. I couldn't help but laugh, but I felt sorry for her stupidity. Graham appeared just at the right time, intimately holding my hand and declaring his sovereignty. Wife, are you ready? My cousin and sister are waiting for us outside. He still had an innocent smile on his face, but his eyes looking at Jace were dark and hidden. You must be Mr. Jace, it's a pleasure to meet you.
10.
Olivia, you're married? Jace couldn't believe his eyes as he watched Graham and me standing together. We just eloped. We're having a wedding next month, I said truthfully. Hearing me admit it directly, Jace felt dazed. It's only been a month since we last saw each other, Olivia, you. Everyone said that Jace and I were a perfect match, and he never expected that one day I would marry someone else. I gave Penelope a cold warning. Graham is not some random guy. Penelope, if you don't want the Jace family company to go downhill, I advise you to control your mouth. Penelope pouted, but she was secretly delighted. No one could compete with her for Jace anymore. Graham was both surprised and happy with my attitude. He had never expected me to stand up for him. Jace, however, smiled bitterly. In the past, I had treated him the same way, but now everything had changed so suddenly. Graham and I left together. Uncle Jace, she's not worth your anger. Penelope will be with you in the future. Penelope tried to soothe Jace's feelings, but he pushed her away abruptly. When I and Graham announced our engagement, Jace suddenly chased after us onto the stage, holding my hand helplessly and admitting his mistake. Olivia, you're just angry at me, aren't you? These people are all actors you hired. I was wrong to be late for the engagement. Let's not fight anymore, okay? I had never seen him lose his composure in public like this before. Jace didn't love me, and his current reaction was just out of unwillingness to accept it. Penelope was both anxious and angry, shouting at the media not to take pictures, and tried to drag him away. In the end, Graham called the security guards to expel Jace, and I watched the farce with cold eyes. Not long after, Penelope found me again and stopped me downstairs in the company building. I made it clear to her, Jace is your uncle. Even without me, you wouldn't be able to realize your unrealistic fantasies with those clumsy tricks. Penelope, on the contrary, incited me. Olivia, you've been chasing after Jace since you were young. Now the Jace family intends to match him with the daughter of the SJ group. Don't you care at all? She was practically writing her scheming on her face, treating people like fools, and I couldn't help but laugh. Penelope, I'm already married, and your business with Jace has nothing to do with me. President Elliot has a daughter at an older age. I advise you to stay away from the young lady of the SJ group. Penelope still argued, Olivia, Uncle Jace has lost face because of you. Don't try to get rid of yourself. If he is forced to be with someone else, then I won't live either. In the past, Jace spoiled her, and actually spoiled her brain. My eyes dimmed. Then go ahead and die. Penelope was so angry, but before she could act up, I had already walked upstairs in my high heels. A week later, I heard news about Penelope. She had a big fight with the daughter of the SJ group over a limited edition lipstick at the mall and completely ruined the marriage between the two families, cutting off a relationship with the Jace family. I had been very tolerant of Penelope in the past, which made her arrogant and, as expected, brought me a reward. The day Olivia's company acquired Jace's company, I met Jace again. As we were handing over the contract, he looked at me with complex emotions. It was your doing to invade the market and suppress the Jace family company. I simply said, the Jace family has come to this point because of your own doing. I'm just taking advantage of the situation. Jace was disappointed but had a glimmer of hope. Olivia, I can stay in the Jace family company, just like before. We can work together to complete the project. I took the contract and stood up, telling him directly, Jace, in fact, I can also make a project plan that satisfies the client without you. From the moment Jace's company was acquired by Olivia's company, you have already lost to me.